What else is new?
Suit up.
Cap is dangerous. Let's bring him in. You chose the wrong side. Keep telling yourself that.
This is gonna end well.
Captain America.
What is going on, my nice Critical Redemption, bringing you a movie review of Captain America Civil War. Finally, the Russo brothers, remarkably outshining both Avengers, have outdone themselves. This film is amazing. I mean, everything about Captain America Civil War is finally the fully realized team-up movie Marvel has been striving to make all these years, and it's a good thing. Following the efforts on Captain America the Winter Soldier, director Joe and Anthony Russo, the Russo brothers, exhibit a rock-steady hand as they guide the Avengers through a stripped-down plot pitting former allies Captain America, played by Chris Evans, and our favorite Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., against one another. So that's where our story begins, with other heroes rallying around those two poles. The characters face the consequences of their superpowered actions and ultimately examine how their own personal histories influence their heroics. So that's a good thing. So somehow managing time to introduce both Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman, which does an amazing job. His accent is spot on, like from Wakanda. He's an American in real life, and it's fantastic to hear him. Also, a new version of Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland. We'll get into him in a few. With overstuffing the plot, the filmmakers maintain a constant focus on their own particular exploration of the with great power comes great responsibility concept, and craft one of the few satisfying endgame battles I've ever seen in Marvel Cinematic canon so far. So, Civil War features none Marvel's galactic digressions like the Winter Soldier. It's firmly grounded on Earth, so it's nothing to do with galaxies or anything. With a dozen costume characters, a villain, and at least 3 major supporting characters to push the story forward, this sequel could easily fall prey to the same overweight bulge that has troubled in past superhero films. So, despite all these moving parts, the third Captain America, guys, is relatively lean, driving forward from the introductory sequence, melding action and film central moral is impressive. Setting up the strong foundation quickly is something that you must do in a film. The movie then sets in motion an espionage and a manhunt that becomes much more than a basic excuse for these heroes to punch each other. So let's get into it. Credit to the Russo brothers, like I said, Marvel's Kevin Feige, and also screenwriter Christopher Marcus and Stefan McFeely for designing a story with shark-like forward momentum, which I really liked. You could tell it was serious action and non-stop thrill ride. Right when you watch this movie, it goes right into action and emotion, and you feel it. An opening action sequence pits the Avengers against the scared mercenary Crossbones. And yes, he didn't get too much screen time. He was played by Frank Grillo, but it was still cool to see him. And shows off the team's coordination and teamwork, but also their full ability to each other, which is kind of satisfying. You see the evolution of these characters. A protective maneuver gone wrong leads to innocent deaths, which becomes the breaking point for world governments increasingly uneasy about the unrestrained power of the Avengers after major battles in New York, the Avengers, and Spolier, Age of Ultron. A United Nations resolution purposes the metahumans, to submit voluntary oversight. So everything the Avengers have done from New York to Spolier has caused kind of like a world war, and the government is hating the Avengers for all these innocent deaths. So this is where Tony Stark is driven by guilt for designing Ultron, and he evacuates from the UN's demands, while Captain America, on the other hand, is suspicious of modern government born during the Winter Soldier. So it goes back and forth. It grows independent streak and refuses to adhere to so-called Sokovia Accords. So Sebastian Stan, aka Bucky, now known as the mentally programmed Winter Soldier, he has tons of problems, and he's in this movie, and I love it. The draws that Black Panther, aka T'Challa, Prince of the isolated African nation Wakanda, into the fray focus on taking down Bucky for his terrorist action, and he also thinks that Bucky is the one who killed his father, King T'Challa. So with so many characters in the mix, guys, the plot sounds more complex than it really is, but if you think about it, the film's chief asset with the major scenario sketched in the characters are free to bounce around, which is something relatively confined, and the it primarily works. So more often than their collisions are physically violent, but the battle between Cap and Iron Man, wow! These friends and teammates who have political affiliations have become tied to their persona, and it's also an emotional ride. So, you get to see a lot of screen time from Tony Stark, from Steve Rogers, and also War Machine. War Machine gets his redemption in this movie. He's in this movie a lot. You see him a lot. You see a lot of Rhodey, which I really liked. Just as this film avoids galactic complications, the climax remains local, which is good. No world engines on Earth-threatening aliens, so we're not going to deal with any aliens this time. It would be a stretch to call this third Captain America film of drama because there's so much action in it. But far more than comic book films, this is a story conflict between people building on the history of Marvel's cinematic universe. I cannot stress this enough. This movie is amazing, and the old affection between the two heroes amplifies through the movie, and you will see it how they want to fight each other. With the villain Baron Zemo played by Daniel Bruce, drives a wedge into the film's scheme, which is good, and primarily taking advantage of existing cracks in Avengers Foundation. So he is the one who takes the identity of Bucky and the Winter Soldier and kills King T'Challa. So that's why Black Panther wants to go after him. Battles are not exclusively emotional, however, it always ends in a fight. Always kicking ass, as Buckley grimly notes. The Russo brothers and their various fights choreographers did a amazing job with visual effects, lead design, fight sequences with such fluid combat that world of Bruce Lee would be super proud. The Black Panther is like Bruce Lee. You see all these, karate moves, and it's amazing. One sequence featuring Captain America, Bucky, and a host of government agents played by like a scale-up version of the Raid, with impressive use of vertical space, which is freaking awesome, and define the action of each hero's relationship to it. So I really like that. But also another thing that was cool about this movie is a battle in Berlin airport acts as the film's centerpiece with Ant-Man and Spider-Man. Wow, Ant-Man and Spider-Man. Let's get into Ant-Man and Spider-Man. First, let's talk about Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You see him get introduced with Tony Stark. Tony Stark wants to get one more person for his team, so he goes over to Queens, New York, and talks to Peter Parker. Tom Holland, his accent for his New York accent is perfect. You can tell he's a 16-year-old kid, very immature, wants to help out Tony Stark, but you see Aunt May, and goddamn, she's so hot. Even Tony Stark says she's hot, Peter, come on, what are you, Aunt May over here? But yeah, and you could see that Tony Stark helps Spider-Man build his costume, because if you see in the movie, this is spoiler territory here, you see all these TV screenshots of Spidey swinging by on the news, and you could tell it's one of those new suits that haven't been really developed yet, kind of like in the first two Spider-Man films, the remake and the Sam Raimi ones. So he's perfect. Iron Man's team and Vision, Black Widow, Spider-Man, War Machine, and Black Panther attempts to capture Bucky, Cap, and the heroes on Cap's side, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, and Hawkeye. The combination of Spidey and fighting, yeah, he only gets 30 minutes, but you could tell Tom Holland's going to be a really good Spider-Man. He is so funny. He is straight up, cracks jokes. Him and Ant-Man, that one scene where he talks about The Empire Strikes Back is freaking ridiculous, and it's so funny. And the way he is, and the way he just wants to keep kicking ass is fantastic and super hilarious. Spider-Man stands out from the pack, not only by virtue, but a unique deal that brings him back into Marvel's fold, because I'm so excited. Tom Holland plays the character as a kid. This is the youngest Spider-Man we've seen on the big screen, wide-eyed, not quite in control of his skills, and thus closest to the classic version of the character, which is good. An extent dialogue with Robert Downey Jr. and Holland nails Peter Parker's combination of eager adolescence and emerging confidence, which is really, really good. But throughout the big fight of all the film other battles, those character quirks are front and center. We've seen other superhero movies stumble the characters cast off their personalities in combat. The Russo brothers, however, use fisticuffs as methods to draw out aspects of each individual character, which is amazing. Black Widow, you get to see kick ass in the beginning of the movie and is determined to canny mine a Black Panther. Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman plays the Black Panther as a regular leader, intelligent and physically powerful, with all the confidence of a man who's earned his place in the world. As a new presence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Panther is distinguished as a unique character, and he gets so much more screen time than Spider-Man because you can tell they're focused on a Black Panther film. But wow, Bosman does amazing job at his accent. This is one downside to the character that people had, but I had such a good time with it. You can tell he kicked ass. His suit was kick ass. Everything about this movie was kick ass. So people are comparing this movie to Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. There's temptation to treat this Marvel sequel as its own, but you guys got to stop comparing it to Batman v Superman, saying it's a lot better. It is a lot better, but I still enjoy Batman v Superman. But back to the subject of Captain America's Civil War. This movie gets a 10 out of 10 for me because it's amazing. So much human scale in this movie. Striking, action, engaging. The Russo brothers defy the craft of compelling blockbuster entertainment. The morals, the emotional conflict in this movie is impressive. An overblown display of loud and vulture power, and everything is amazing. This is Critical Redemption. I give this movie a 10 out of 10. I highly recommend you guys watch it. Until next time, guys, Critical Redemption out. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon.